when they started to tell me what was wrong with the world, I said, well, it's all those Jews, isn't it? I mean, they're the ones, and those black people. And they were absolutely appalled. And they, instead of kind of turning against me, they argued with me. And over a period of time, it was extraordinary. I was transformed from being this little chauvinistic, racist, kind of apologist for empire building and chauvinism into a Marxist revolutionary Trotskyist, and it was to such an extent I even turned against them because I didn't think they were Marxist enough. So I went from Jesus to Marx, and it was kind of extraordinary conversion because it took me a long while to realize I'd just gone from one religion to another. But I then started to really try and understand what was going on in the world. Got involved in the condition, the war in Vietnam. Became involved in the political movement, not just a protester. Even though I did get beaten up at Grosvenor Square, trying to invade the American embassy, which was the fact that the police stopped us was probably a good thing because there was loads of Marines in there ready to make dinner of us. But then I got really involved in the class struggle, and that went on for quite a period of time. In the meanwhile, I'd sorted myself out with the police, and had got myself. I'd been undercover. I mean, I'd lived under a number of pseudonyms for about 7 years, got myself sorted out, and by the time I was 27, I got married again. And then I started working, which was, because I'd been in and out of jobs. And then eventually in my 30s, I started to train myself to be a printer, which meant getting jobs as a printer and then getting the sack almost immediately because they realized I couldn't print. And then I acquired, after about 9 jobs, I was quite good at it, not getting sacked, but I was quite good at printing. And then I started to get restless working for a printer and becoming very, very good at it and becoming obsessed with it. And then started publishing magazines and newspapers and got involved in distributing literature and got involved in things like the Nicaraguan Solidarity campaign and printing postcards for them and getting involved in green issues and gay rights and quite a number of those kind of issues which and I was a very useful guy because I was a printer and I could do things for nothing and get it designed well, and it wouldn't just be some shoddy amateurish thing. So I almost became a kind of businessman for the left. And that probably went on until my late 30s and early 40s. And then I became a student because I wanted to catch up with I wanted to learn to be able to write essays better and do all that stuff. So I went to college and I got a degree, which was a very useful degree because it meant it opened a number of doors to me, even though I graduated at the age of 40, 41. And then, because it meant I could get different kind of work, and I didn't really want to carry on just being a machine minder or whatever. Anyway, and then I re-met this guy I'd known when I was sleeping rough and breaking windows and stealing from shops when I was 21. I re-met him because I saw him on the television with one of my children watching, and reconnected. And he'd become a multi-millionaire. His name was Gordon Roddick, and with Anita Roddick had started the Body Shop. And then after a few years, he was in New York in 1990 and saw a paper called Street News being sold by some guy in Midtown Manhattan. And he was blown away. He spoke to the guy. The guy said, I buy the paper 50 cents, sell it for $1. People give me a tip. I work my money. I have come out of the penitentiary. I'm 54. I'm from Brownsville. No one's going to give a big black guy with a prison record a job. Why? And he told his story to Gordon, and Gordon thought, wow, this man is working his way out of poverty, or working his way into a situation of having a sustainable existence. Gordon came back to the UK, tried to start a street paper by getting the Body Shop Foundation, which him and his wife had set up just after starting the Body Shop about 10 years before, and couldn't get anywhere because virtually all of the homeless organizations didn't like the idea that homeless people would have their own money. They didn't like the idea that people would be making enough money so they could buy their own drink and their own drugs. And eventually he came to me and he said, look, why don't you do this? And I said, well, I'm not a do-gooder. I've been through, I'm beaten by the system. I mean, not beaten, but I mean, I just can't see any way through that charity would work because, charity is just a kind of the crumbs falling off the table, of the capitalist meal. And so what I did was, I said, look, if you want me to do this, I'd do it as a business. I've done it as a business. I'd have a business-like relationship with the homeless. I wouldn't give them anything. What I'd do is give them opportunity, which is the one thing that they lack. And he said, okay. So I went and spoke to a number of the homeless organizations. There were 501 homeless organizations in London alone, and not one of them was giving work to homeless people. You could get everything from sandwiches to condoms, but you could not get a job out of them. You couldn't get any work. They would put you up, they would feed you and clothe you, but they wouldn't give you any opportunity to gain some work, which I found extraordinary because here was this vast body of people who worked with homelessness, and they were all in work, and there was many of them. There were thousands of people, but they couldn't actually give the homeless what they themselves had. And I realized, of course, there was a great division in the world between them and us. Them were the people who were the poor, and then there was us. And I thought, well, I don't want to get involved in anything unless I can make them us. If I can transitionalize people out of poverty, if I can become the person who moves them on to social mobility, then I would have got them out of poverty. And that was extraordinarily simple and dumb because people didn't think that way. They thought, let's help the homeless, let's help the poor, let's feed them, and I just said, well, you just make them dependent unless there's a trajectory for their social improvement. All you're doing is they're refugees, right then. So they're not in a refugee camp in Africa, but they're in a refugee camp in the centre of London.
When you were homeless, John, did you think that you could be hired by an organization or that you would be eating 3 days from the time you were on the street? I mean, what was your thinking when you were on the street?
Well, when I was on the street, I was largely avoiding the police. So I was a beggar. What I found very, very difficult, I mean, you actually could get work in the 60s and the 70s, but because what you had then was you had the working poor. And now in the UK, what we've got is the unworking poor. There are people who are still poor, there are people who never make enough money from their labours. But what we've managed to grow in the last 25 years is a vast section of people who live on welfare, who have no work, and they are the unworking poor, and they are the most tragically caught people in society. But 40 years ago, 30 years ago, you could earn your crust. And there were a number of reasons why you had to, because we had very hard police officers who, if they saw you begging, would arrest you for vagrancy. If they saw you, they'd arrest you for begging, and there are many laws in the UK that say that it's illegal. And then there's the no fixed abode. If you had no fixed abode, if you had nowhere to stay, then you you were arrested for vagrancy and you could be